A very good afternoon to all. Happy New Year, and I hope all of you have a great start for 2022. My name is Jasmine, and a warm welcome to the Global Tech Business Outlook webinar. This is our first webinar for the year, where we crystal gazing into the future of business in the endemic world. The world economy is slowly adapting to the new normal that resulted from COVID-19. Many companies have transited to cloud and even implemented permanent work from home models. With tech requirements on the rise, ICT companies have been reporting positive business growth. Nonetheless, cybersecurity, tech talent crunch are still some issues to be grappled with. And beyond this, what are the trends and business outlook be like in 2022? In this session, our esteemed industry speakers will share insights on building Singapore tech ecosystem, the emerging trends that lie ahead in 2022 for SMEs and corporates who transact across borders, and also the growth opportunities for Hong Kong and the Greater Bay Area. We would like to thank our partners, Digital Industry Singapore, Invest Hong Kong, and Western Union Business Solutions for their support in making this webinar possible. Before we start the event proper, allow us to share some functions of this webinar. We are making a recording of the webinar, and it will be available on SGTech YouTube channel one day after the event. If you have any questions at any point of time, you may use the Zoom Q&A function and post in them. Please help us to indicate your name and company name when submitting the questions. We will answer them during the Fireside Chat and Q&A segment after all the speakers' presentations have concluded. Without further ado, I'd like to invite SGTech Executive Director, Yean, to give her welcome address. Yean is an international C-suite marketer, digital strategist, and change catalyst with over 20 plus years of experience working in diverse industries and cities across the Asia Pacific. Yean, over to you. Yean, you are muted.
Yes, the most commonly used phrase for webinars. Thanks, Jasri. A very good afternoon to all of you and welcome to the Global Tech Business Outlook 2022 webinar. To our returning friends and existing SGTech members, it's a pleasure to have you with us again. And to those unfamiliar with what we do let me give you a bit of a brief introduction. SGTech is the leading trade association for Singapore's tech industry. We represent nearly 1,000 member companies. Our members range from top multinational corporations, large local enterprises, vibrant small and medium-sized enterprises, and innovative startups. SGTech is the largest community in Singapore where companies converge to advocate for change and drive what enables tech innovation and accelerates tech adoption in order to spur greater sustainability in the sector. Our mission is to catalyze a thriving ecosystem that powers Singapore as a global tech powerhouse. Despite the setback from the emergence of the Delta and Omicron variant in 2021 and how COVID-19 has disrupted supply chains, restricted travel, and cast business uncertainties worldwide, international markets remain attractive to Singapore companies to seek new customers, access new suppliers, and grow their businesses. Singapore has been strengthening its existing partnerships through free trade agreements, as well as building linkages in newer areas of opportunity, which are ultimately about creating opportunities for its businesses and people to benefit. Today, we are happy and privileged to have our panel of industry speakers with us to discuss tech trends that will dominate 2022 and the global business outlook in the endemic world. Together with Digital Industry Singapore, Invest Hong Kong, and Western Union Business Solutions, we wish everyone a fruitful webinar ahead. Thank you. Back to you, Jasri.
Thank you so much, Yean. Next, we will have Mr. Ang Chin Ta from Digital Industry Singapore to give us his presentation on building Singapore tech ecosystem. Chin Ta was appointed as Senior Vice President and Head of Digital Industry Singapore in April 2021. Digital Industry Singapore is an alliance between the Economic Development Board, Enterprise Singapore, and the Infocom and Media Development Authority. Its vision is a great tech ecosystem in Singapore that companies and people want to connect with. Prior to his current role, Chinta held various positions across EDB, including that of Director of Info Communications and Media Division, Director of Human Capital in charge of sectoral manpower policy and planning, and Regional Director based out of New York, responsible for EDB offices in New York, Washington, D.C., Chicago, and Boston. He had also set up EDB Sao Paulo, Brazil office in 2009. Now let us welcome Chinta, please.
Thank you, Jezeri. Let me just get my slides on the screen. Hello, a very good afternoon to one and all. My name is Chinta and I'm really excited to be here today. I don't know about everyone who's on the webinar today, but this is my first event of the year and I'm really excited. In the spirit of new beginnings, I'd like to start with a few words of gratitude. Firstly, thank you SGTech for giving us this opportunity. We are very excited to share a little bit about what we do in DISG, which is Digital Industry Singapore, and even more so for your partnership over the years. I look forward to doing great work over 2022 and beyond. I also like to thank everybody who's on the call right now. Thank you for joining us here today. I'm looking very much forward to the conversation we'll be having afterwards. And finally, I'd like to thank my team who helped prepare myself for today's call, especially Wei Kang, who worked really hard on some of the material. So this is my way of saying, if you have any questions, you can ask me, but you can also ask him. So let me get right to it. I've been asked to speak a little bit about our thinking around building a great tech ecosystem in Singapore. But I thought before we get into some of the details around that, I wanted to take a step back and maybe frame it a little bit more broadly for everybody. Now, 2020 and 2021, as we all know, and I think Yean intimated in her opening, have been a hell of a 24 months or so. And I think it's been very interesting and challenging times for our industry. And here I've just listed down some of the highlights, if you will, some of the lowlights over the past 24 or 36 months. We have seen Asia continue to emerge as a very important market and the acceleration of digitalization. If you're wondering what the injectable there represents, it both represents a vaccine because we are living in the middle of a pandemic, but it also represents a shot in the arm the pandemic has actually given to the digital industry, not just in Asia and Southeast Asia and Singapore, but worldwide. So see here some of the numbers I put out there. I think the idea for everyone to take away is that the market is tripling in size. Funds raised are doubling just in Singapore alone. I think we're seeing a pushback, or rather a return to levels even higher than pre-pandemic levels. So I think it's very exciting times for companies in this sector. And I'll dive a little bit more into this later on in today's sharing. If I move further down the slide, you see there the reverse question mark, because just 6 months ago, who knew we'd be talking endlessly about the metaverse and Web3, but today it's passed into our kind of like everyday lingo, especially those of us who work in the industry. It's hard to tell what's going to happen in the future. If I had a crystal ball, I wouldn't be here talking to you guys. I'd be out there speculating. But I think this just represents how important it is for the industry to continue to be on the leading and bleeding edge of what's happening out there, and for the government, which is Digital Industry Singapore, to be there together with you guys. Finally, we have seen there, I put on some headlines, techno-nationalism and techlash. Basically, while times have been good in certain jurisdictions and the interactions between certain countries, I think I've worked out pretty in a very challenging way for some of the companies in the tech industry out there, whether it's US, China, whether it's India with China, whether it's within China alone. I think you see this interplay between the state and the private sector coming to the fore. I'm not even talking about things like base erosion and profit shifting yet, which is going to come fully on stream in 2022. Right? So a lot of these things are happening in the macroeconomic landscape. And I think these are all the things that represent challenge and opportunity in the sector that we're all part of. It's partly to address some of these challenges and opportunities that DISG, Digital Industry Singapore, was established in 2019. You'll see here, I put together a Venn diagram because what we are is an alliance between 3 government agencies. Enterprise Singapore is one that probably a lot of the folks on the webinar today would be very familiar with. They take care of the local landscape SMEs and innovation. We have the Infocom and Media Development Authority, which is a regulator and sector lead for Infocom and technology. And then you have EDB, right? And EDB is the agency that works with inviting in investments from overseas and working with large companies. It's a lot of acronyms, so if you're not familiar with any of these acronyms, well, congratulations, that's good, because now you only need to remember DISG. Our goal is to be kind of like the single point of contact or the navigator for the digital economy, for the private sector, for Singaporeans and other individuals, as well as the private sector. So you want to kind of like streamline the experience. So you see on the left-hand side of the slide, some of our key principles, right? We're going to prioritize the customer, not prioritize the mandate. We're going to integrate across agendas. What I originally put on the slide, guys, was actually screw silos, but I thought that was a bit too much for a government representative to make as a statement in writing. But that is the idea here. We want to make sure that we're looking at it across government agendas and not just from like inbound, outbound, internationalization, SME versus MNC kind of language. We want to integrate everything. And that leads to the third point, which is to think of it in terms of the ecosystem. So I'm very happy to hear what Yean shared earlier. It seems like our vision statements are quite similar. I can assure you it's either coincidence or great minds think alike. I hope it's not the other saying. But the idea here is we are here and we want to see how we can work with all of you to make sure that Singapore is a great tech ecosystem that companies and people want to connect with. Now, I want to be clear, we can't be everything to everybody, but we want to be that navigator for you. The way we think about the tech ecosystem is in terms of how we can harness virtual cycles, right? So what I've put here is the Singapore tech ecosystem flywheel. I put SGT in the middle. I don't know what you can see here. I'm wearing the SG kind of like a logo. It's a riff on SG50, which happened a couple of years ago. So idea here is when the SGT, the Singapore tech ecosystem grows, it will benefit the wider economy. And it consists of three segments: opportunities, which is companies venturing abroad from Singapore, or companies coming from abroad into Singapore, and the interplay there, right? We believe when there's a lot of opportunities in Singapore, in our tech ecosystem, you'll attract more opportunities. You also attract more talent. The talent that enters the sector will then train more talent, and then they will kind of like diffuse into the habitat, the environment, and improve that, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's policy. And that's how you get the flywheel starting to spin, and that will generate spin-offs to the rest of the broader economy. Now, if I may, I would just like to double click into some of these different segments so that you all get a better picture of what I'm talking about and how DISG works with companies in each of these different parts. So here you have the first statement I'm going to make around opportunities. There are opportunities abound. Some of this data I've shared earlier, you're probably very familiar, but specifically I want to zoom into Southeast Asia, digital natives, young population, 40 million new internet users. Every report we read, they are talking about the acceleration has accelerated. So I can't remember my calculus and differentiation from school, but it sounds like there's a lot of growth there, but it's not without challenges because it's a fragmented market, right? But it's also a market that is less contested than what you see in China, Europe, and the United States, right? The digital economy in Southeast Asia expected to double over the next 4 years to $350 billion. And you see on the right-hand side of the slide, some of the key areas that enterprises are looking to digitize or to prioritize when they think about how to transform their businesses to bring them into the next level, to tap on some of these opportunities that the pandemic and the different kind of like context the world is bringing, how they can tap on some of these opportunities. So the way DISG works with our companies is we try to see how we can connect the opportunities. Now, we have Genes, or we are one of our parent agencies, Enterprise Singapore. So through that kind of like connection, we continue to support companies in their internationalization efforts. So here I am putting out a rallying cry to go out into Southeast Asia, to venture abroad, even during these times. And the government will be here to support you in doing so. The other thing that DISG directly runs, in addition to tapping on some of the parent agency schemes in ESG, is to see how we can work with kind of like larger technology companies or retailers to bring smaller startups abroad as they start to enter new markets. For those of you who are interested in learning a bit more, feel free to reach out to me. But our idea here is to see how we can go together to penetrate new markets. The next part of the flywheel is talent. Now, I've highlighted talent in red because as we all know, there's a talent crunch. In fact, crunch might be a bit of an understatement. I'm here to say a couple of things. The government is aware the talent is very short on the ground. we are very concerned and we're doing all we can. We also note that the talent shortage is not just in Singapore, otherwise that's something we can focus on. It's also short in the region and globally, right? So it's a pretty big problem. I just wanted to put on the slide here some of the initiatives you have seen, whether it is just tripling our intake of computer science and data analytics graduates from our autonomous universities over the past 10 years. We've tripled it. The feedback we get from the professors is that the limit is reached. It's not a classroom issue. It's I cannot grade so many papers issue, right? So we will continue to see how we can optimize that. But I just want to say that we are aware and we have tripled that kind of like a capacity. The second thing you see there is around community building. This idea here is how can we get people to help each other rather than have the government intervene all the time. This is where partners like SGTech, SG Innovate come in and play a very important role. DISG ourselves, we have through our training partners, the companies we work with, we have created 10,000 job placements and training opportunities over the past 24 months, right? Through a variety of the government schemes under SG United. We continue to attract top tier talent, and that's something that is facilitated through my organization to make sure that you as employers in Singapore have access to the right talent to do product development, innovation, engineering work here. We also want to go the other way where we send Singaporeans abroad because we want to have Singaporeans cut their teeth in emerging markets so they know what to do so that they can be of value and service to some of the companies who have chosen to use Singapore as their Asia Pacific or Southeast Asian regional headquarters or global headquarters. Finally, we are experimenting with connecting Singapore-based tech employers with sources of tech talent overseas. We're still in very early days. In fact, I took a bit of a punt to talk about it here because we're still experimenting or exploring it. But here's a call out to those who believe that they can contribute, who may have experience operating in Vietnam, Taiwan, India, Europe, or the United States, where you have access to a lot of tech talent. What are your experiences there? How can we work together? This is something we'll love to have a conversation around. Next, we are seeking to build a welcoming and sustainable habitat in, and here's the thing, around Singapore, because Singapore is a finite physical and a human capital kind of like catchment, and we want to expand that. So within Singapore, for fostering close relationships between policymakers and key partners, we are enhancing and growing the funding environment. And you see here, we work with both trade associations, private sector players, and the rest of government to get some of these things done. On the right-hand side, where it's a little bit more interesting, we're trying to diversify our source of our resource base to outside of Singapore, to the region that's immediately around us. Places like Johor, or in this example here, Batam, Nongsa Digital Park. I've been very chuffed to see the growth in Nongsa, and I'll admit 3-4 years ago when I was asked to look at Nongsa as an option for some of our companies, I was a little bit skeptical. Back then they had 200 employees and maybe a dozen or so companies there. Today in 2022 January, there are 1,200 tech workers in Nongsa Digital Park, 200 employers, and an Apple Developer Academy. So it's come a long way. So if during this presentation, you find that I'm mumbling a little bit, that's because my foot is in my mouth. I'm trying to get it out of my mouth. The idea here is we have seen Nongsa become a viable option, not just for tech talent, fivefold increase, right? But also in terms of data centers, power, and electricity, where we have companies like Data First announcing they will be setting up their data center there in just a few months ago. So I think that's an option for some of you guys who are looking to expand your resource base. This is also kind of like the inspiration behind the idea I was talking about earlier about how we can tap on bases outside of Singapore. Okay. Finally, a strong Singapore tech ecosystem, or SGTE, supports a wider economy. And I think this is kind of like the more you give to the wider economy, the more you get back. The more you support digitalization and help SMEs go abroad, the more they become sophisticated and loyal customers to your enterprise solutions, right? So this is something that we are very keen to continue to push in 2022 and beyond. And this is how, in a sense, the SGTE flywheel comes together. I'll just leave you guys with a few thoughts on how I thought we could maybe work together. As I mentioned earlier, we are Navigator, the rest of the Singapore government. Come to us if you are interested in exploring opportunities in Singapore and around the world, building your talent, enhancing our habitat. I want to stress again, we do not differentiate between local or foreign companies, large or small. I think our idea here is how we can integrate across silos and see how we can think ecosystem and prioritize your experience. Next, please let us have your views. I know there'll be many coming. I speak to many companies and we have really enjoyed and appreciated the candid feedback. DISG, we don't live on courtesy or political correctness. I kind of like want to get to the truth so we can do something about it. I can't commit to always acting on or doing everything you share with us, but we are committed to always listening. Finally, talent is our most pressing issue. I had this wild idea about how we can access talent bases overseas. If you're prepared to go on that journey with us, please give a shout out. Thank you very much. And I wish the rest of you guys a great webinar. And feel free to reach out to me if you have any further questions or comments. Looking forward to the conversation afterwards. Thank you. Over to you, Desiree.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chinta, for your insightful presentation. Right. So a reminder to all our participants, if you have any questions, you may use the Q&A function and post it in. Then we will address to them during the Fireside Chat Q&A session after all the speakers' presentation. So now our next speaker is Mr. Kentaro Takenaka, Head Corporate Hedging Asia at Western Union Business Solutions. Before Western Union Business Solutions, Ken worked 11 years in the largest Japanese bank as a foreign exchange market specialist for MNC clients, providing his experts insights, including FX risk analysis and management strategies, quantitative analysis, FX product structuring, and EFX data analysis. He recently completed an executive MBA by Nanyang Business School in collaboration with Wharton Business School and UC Berkeley Business School to develop more diverse sets of skills and expertise. Ken, over to you. Ken, you are muted.
Thank you very much. Let me share my screen. Okay. Okay, do you see my screen now?
Yes, all good.
Okay, all good. All right. Happy New Year, everyone. Hope 2022 will get our ordinary life back from COVID-19. Thank you very much for your time everyone today. My name is Kentaro Takenaka. Obviously, I'm Japanese. Just call me Ken in short form. I'm a head of corporate hedging for Asia, Western Union Business Solutions. We provide solutions for corporate financial risk management. We issue this report, Are You Ready For? Series every year, actually. I believe this report is one of the best report we publish as it is prepared by our economists all over the world. And this report covers not only the global markets outlook, but also provide a fundamentals idea how to manage FX risk in your business. Although most of the people here on screen are interested in the FX forecast, probably. Before we dive into the global outlook, let us introduce ourselves, who we are for some of you that might not have heard about us at all, just in case. Our clients are from SMEs to listed corporate clients in Singapore, including finance institutions, legal firms, educational institutions, and NGOs. Our user-friendly platform helps clients manage cash flow, currency exposure, and payment. We can make cross-border payment for more than 200 over countries, territories in more than 130 currencies through our global banking partnership and network. Finally, we provide solutions for corporate client financial risk management to the clients. Sorry. Okay, first, let me run through the global outlook in 2022. Factors that may shape the global economy in 2022, we really have to pay attention to the risk factor that might affect your business in 2022. First, obviously, new COVID-19 wave continue to be the risk factors of the global economy in 2022. We have already seen the Omicron variant this year that is rapidly traveling around the globe. Secondly, high inflation, followed by capital outflow from emerging countries. In the last year's report in 2021 outlook, we focused on when COVID-19 vaccinations or vaccines would empower the economic recovery and how a record 15 trillion of stimulus had taken us into a new monetary and government policy era. We are now focusing very much on the next phase of recovery and the easing of restrictions and rising vaccination rates in many countries might lead to the monetary actions for the course of monetary policy normalization. We have seen the steps taken by the central banks in 2021. Bank of England raised the interest rate from 0.1% to 0.25%, and Fed decided to reduce the monthly asset purchasing by 30 billion in total per month at the FOMC meeting in December. The FOMC meeting in December gave really interesting forward guidance for the interest rate projection for 2022 and after. As we head into the planning session, it will be critical for international organizations to rethink the technology and processes they currently have to monitor global market trends that are outside of their control, understand and mitigate the volatility of a 5 to 10% currency exchange rate that can give an impact to the operations, cash flow, and profitability of each company. So I will dive into the market themes each individual. In this report, we cover 8 themes of 2022. And let me pick a few of them. One of them, firstly, is COVID-19. Obviously, this is one of the spotlighted in 2022 continuously. This year could also become a battle between aggressive economic and pandemic rebound, trying to push markets up and decreasing liquidity, pulling them down. Each country will face similar challenges. However, what will make 2022 especially unique is that different regions are at different stage of their recovery curves. For example, many advanced economies such as US, UK, European countries, Japan, Singapore, and Australia are enjoying the mass vaccinations, while emerging Asian countries are still struggling. The mismatched combinations of all these factors is what is expected to lead to ongoing stresses in the global economy. We also cannot underestimate the recent global rising prices. The latest inflation data of the US shows the higher inflation than the Fed target rate, around only 2%. In November, compared to 2021, the US inflation data shows around 5%, while US GDP in Q3 only showed a growth of 2.3% year on year. We have not seen the technical stagflation stage at this moment yet, where economic growth rate slows during the high inflation and the high unemployment rate. However, some analysts have started to talk about it. While we have seen the global economy challenged with global low interest rate policy to support the economy, the price of equities, housing, or even cryptocurrencies prices outperformed in 2021. In this report, 4 factors could trigger a sharp correction of prices. A sudden rise of credit rates driven by rapid policy tightening from the US Fed. Number 2, another powerful pandemic wave forcing governments to restore lockdown rules again. Third, unexpected upsurge in the bankruptcies or debt defaults from big corporations. Lastly, a crackdown of regulations on leverage across property and or cryptocurrency markets. It also mentions the rise of the US interest rate is positive factors for the US dollars, underpinning its attractiveness compared to the peers offering lower yield currencies. However, higher rates could be problematic for the dollar if it is trigger a significant credit squeeze, driving stock and housing price to a substantially lower level. So here are some of the other themes that is covered in this full report, but I'm not due to the time constraint, I'm not going to cover all of this. So if you're interested, please reach me out to my email directly. FX focus, section 3. FX focus, let me share that US dollars against Singapore dollars, most of the people are interested. As of Q2 in 2021, when this report was prepared, the forecast was inclined to downward trend. The median of 1 year later, that is literally Q2 2022, was 1.31. However, the forecast can be revised every quarterly, and the latest FX poll shows dollar yen will be around 1.34 in Q2 and 1.32 in Q4 2022. The trends continue to be downward side. However, the most important thing we see in this is what are the driver of the FX market. So in this slide, 3 key factors will drive the US dollars against Singapore dollars mainly, but not limited to. First, inflation, obviously. Inflation is one of the spotlighted in 2022 to drive the dollar yen market. Secondly, higher interest rates or US monetary policy, as well as the MAS monetary policy. And lastly, total global macro economy is going to be a key factors to drive this market. Section 4 is about risk management. In 2022, if US Fed hike interest rate for 3 times, we might need to pivot or plan to accommodate to the new environment from the financial perspective. The borrowing cost will increase, and you as a finance managers or business owners have to calculate the higher credit costs into business, such as trade financing costs at the higher rate. Higher discounted rate is applied for the purchase of accounts receivable, or even higher interest rate for costs, higher interest rate cost for capital investment, and so on and so forth. So in addition to that, you still need to manage unpredictable FX rate. And risk management process here is to reduce one of the concerns. Many customers told me we have no choice to bear with the rising US dollars if you are a buyer. However, the FX risk is manageable by reducing the volatility. Let me go through how. Our strategy is not only simply a collection of financial products. Instead, such successful lies in building an end-to-end approach and FX risk mitigation culture, taking a holistic and more disciplined approach to the managing currency exposures. We simply give 3 steps of the risk management to the clients, as you can see on the screen. First of all, you need to identify and quantify the exposure, how much risk you are exposed to monthly or even yearly. In this case, you don't have to come out with the precise forecast at all. You can just have 2 different kind of scenario, like pre-COVID situation or post-COVID situation. And you can even use the historical data for that and use the ballpark figure. Secondly, you should set your goal. This is very, very important. Your objective must be clear and specific. What rate you would like to achieve, and ask yourself why. Okay, you want to protect from the disaster or you want to take advantage from your competitor perspective to exchange better than today's market rate, for example. So depending on your strategy. Lastly, hedging strategy, products, and solution always come last in order to achieve your goal set at a step 2. When you see a doctor, doctors prescribe the medicines only after diagnosis of your problem. And we are happy to discuss with you how to manage the FX risk from the step 1 to 3 to help your business to manage FX risk, or how to mitigate the exposure. Here, assuming you are an importer and buy US dollars every month, today USD Singapore dollar spot exchange rate is assuming around 1.35. If spot rate goes up to 1.4, you have to exchange at 1.4. That is going to be a set scenario. And of course, your costing naturally is going to be increased by 3.7%. That is simply the gap between 1.4 and 1.35. On the other hand, if you didn't hedge, there's an opportunity for you. If spot rate goes down to 1.3, of course, you might be able to cost savings by almost about 3.5, 3.7% as well. So the key message here is that if you did not hedge, it's always a game of the highest risk and highest return. Some customers tell me hedging is like a gambling, but to me, if you didn't hedge, it is like a gambling because it is highest risk and highest return from the probability statistics perspective. If you hedge, your cash flow will be more predictable and more stable compared to no hedge strategy. We have more than 30 over solutions to the clients, not only the forward contracts, but also structured products or even like insurance kind of the products to the offered clients. Those are the solutions should be able to tailor-made for the customer's needs and wants. So please feel free to discuss with us and reach out to us for how we can manage the FX risk, quantify your risk, and set the goal and discuss about the hedging strategy. In this report, you can also find most of the currencies forecast. That was a little bit outdated, like it was prepared in Q2 2021. But most importantly, when you use the forecast as a part of decision-making process or even your own market view, you should not judge your hedge or no hedge. Some clients say, I think I have a view that US dollars against Sing may go down further, and I want to wait. This is kind of a hedge or no hedge strategy. To me, hedge or no hedge should not, your view should not affect your hedge or no hedge strategy. Your view should decide how many percent you want to hedge or how many percent you don't want to hedge. So you should adjust the hedge ratio if you have a strong view, because your view can be correct, your view can be wrong as well. For your information, I have been working in this industry more than 15 years, and my forecast will be always right. So, every day, at least I monitor the FX rate more than 8 hours. Still, I cannot get it because the theme of the market always change time to time, and it's really unpredictable. 2020, or 2019 December or 2020 was a good lesson for us. Nobody talk about the new viruses, right? That was a new game changer. No one forecast it, but it can happen because we cannot predict that. We don't have the crystal ball, right? So it is very, in summary, it is very hard for all of us to project the FX rate. But if you have a view or you want to bet on your view, that is also fine. But the hedge strategy should adjust your hedge ratio. For example, if you have a view, if you're a buyer of US dollars, if you want to buy US dollars, and if you have a view of weakness of the US dollars, you can reduce the hedge ratio by 50%. But on the other hand, if you have a strong view of the dollar may goes up, you can increase the hedge ratio to say 80%, for example. So that's it from me. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Ken, for your comprehensive sharing. We'll now move on to the next speaker, Mr. Charles Ng, Associate Director General, Investment Promotion Sector Specialist at Invest Hong Kong. Charles heads the Sector Specialist Group, helping overseas and mainland companies to establish or expand their business presence in Hong Kong. The 9 sector specialty teams under his purview are grouped under 3 clusters: technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship, fintech, financial and professional services, and lifestyle and creative industries. They offer a one-stop service to help startups, scale-ups, small medium enterprises, and multinational corporations tap into the opportunities Hong Kong, the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Greater Bay Area, the mainland, and Asia have to offer to grow their business. Charles, over to you. Charles, you need to unmute yourself.
Thank you very much, Jasri. Thank you very much, SG Singapore. SGTech, very delighted to be here amongst you, and Happy New Year to all of you. A big shout out to SGTech for holding this event at the beginning of this year. And I think it's a great beginning for all of us. I'd like to, in the next 15 minutes or so, give you an update on the opportunities that Hong Kong and also the Greater Bay Area has to offer. There's been a lot of exciting developments, and I would like to share with you some of the opportunities so that you can, as you plan your year, you can look at this part of the world and in terms of expansion, in terms of investment, in terms of growth opportunities. So I'd like to start with my slides. The first slide in terms of what we'd like to talk about is what Hong Kong, in terms of Invest Hong Kong, just to give you all a synopsis of what Invest Hong Kong is all about. We are next slide, please. We are a government department. We're a government department in charge of helping companies from overseas and the mainland to tap into the opportunities and grow here. So we basically we promote Hong Kong to the world. We attract companies here. We facilitate their startup and expansion. And of course, we offer free of charge service and a full range of advices to how they could leverage on Hong Kong. We reorganized ourselves in April last year to really create an impact for clients, because we see the convergence of technology from different sectors, from the traditional sectors like financial services, trade, transport, and professional services, to really amazing emerging sectors, innovation technology, transport, advanced manufacturing, startups, and a lot of the traditional sectors adopting technology as an enabler. In regards to the various sectors like creative industries, where we see art tech, we see food tech in tourism, hospitality industries, we see ed tech. So wherever we have these traditional sectors, there is a whole host of technology that is being adopted by all. And we are very excited to see that a strong pipeline of companies coming from all over the world, really wanting to tap into these opportunities. So in my next slide, I will like to talk about a little bit about how can companies leverage on that. So a little bit of a story about the whole Hong Kong scene. We have over 9,000 multinational companies, corporations here in Hong Kong. We've close to 1,500 of them with the sort of regional headquarters, and that have created about over 70,000 jobs in the last years. And the biggest investors from the world are mainland China, has taken over from Japan and the US and the UK, followed by Japan, US, UK, and Singapore. And you might want to know, ladies and gentlemen, that Singapore is a very big partner for us. So we work very closely. We like to work very closely with Singapore technology, as well as the entire ecosystem, the government over there, the DISG. I think Cheong have a lot of opportunities for collaboration, whereby Singapore companies are looking up north and wanting to tap into the opportunities Hong Kong has to offer, but also the Greater Bay Area, which I will talk about in length in a few minutes. We work with ecosystem partners from the Science Technology Park, Cyberport, the various associations, incubators, accelerators, the whole entire investment chain from PEVC to family offices, and also work with the universities and also the research institute here in Hong Kong to help the companies when they set up here to tap into the opportunities and actually access to different type of funding, different type of offerings that each of these stakeholders are offering. So in my next slide, I'd like to talk a little bit about why is it relevant? Now, in the 14th five-year plan, which it is a national economic and social development plan for the PRC, and under the one country system, Hong Kong is extremely well positioned, and also we're in a sweet spot to really leverage the 14th five-year plan, and we have the support of our country to really develop Hong Kong into a global, continue to develop into a global financial center. As in terms of last year's numbers, we ranked number 3 in the world behind New York and London as a global financial center. And of course, we're a very important innovation, a very important transportation hub, as well as international trade. So trade, transport, and financial services have been the backbone, and also professional services with dispute resolution, etc., have been the backbone of the Hong Kong's economy. Now we see a very exciting journey ahead of us in terms of developing Hong Kong into the international financial center, international innovation technology center, and also a regional intellectual property trade center, as well as a center, as a hub for East meets West culture. Again, we've seen these amazing emerging areas that we would like companies to look into and tap into, as well as, of course, as an international aviation hub as well. We're building our third runway, which will actually bring we're already the number 1 globally in terms of air cargo, with 5 million TEUs, and with that third runway, we're going to double the capacity to over 10 million TEUs for air cargo, and that will cement Hong Kong's global position as a hub for international freight. So with that, I'd like to explain a little bit about the whole journey and how Hong Kong is developing itself in an international innovation technology hub. There are 4 focused areas, which basically are biomedicine, healthy aging. And again, in these areas, there are sub areas like biotechnology, medical devices, pharmaceutical health, diagnostic, genome medicine, as well as we're building a hospital for traditional Chinese medicine, which will be ready in 2024. So this whole area of biomedicine has a lot of opportunities, because Hong Kong is one of the very few hubs, one of the only hubs where you can do clinical trials and accepted by the Chinese FDA, the European FDA, and the American FDA. So we're seeing a lot of excitement and opportunities here with our 2 strong medical schools, which are taking the lead in terms of a lot of development, a lot of first in the world where we're developing that. So we'd like to invite people in that space to look into the opportunities here. AI, robotics, again, microelectronics, smart manufacturing, AI, big data, enterprise solutions, all various areas we're seeing opportunities in, that companies are using Hong Kong as a center to develop and co-create solutions in those areas for large multinational corporations in Hong Kong, and also in the mainland, but also across in Asia. Smart city technology, very big in the making. We're seeing a lot of areas in sustainability, green carbon neutrality technology, renewable energy, 5G, and cloud computing, data center, etc. And I will bring examples of later on about Singapore companies in all these areas. Also, another area which is in terms of deep tech, we're seeing fintech, where there are a lot of opportunities in reg tech, insure tech, health tech, and digital assets, which again, opportunities which the regulators and us all are working together to create this really massive lab for people to tap into and try adopt different solutions and bring solutions here. We're also creating a greater Bay Area, what we call digital lab to enable companies to tap into and work on solutions. Other areas which are part of that is ed tech, legal tech, food tech, reg tech, art tech, to name a few, and the list goes on. So as Hong Kong is a very diversified economy, we're excited to see the developments and opportunities in every of the traditional sectors, as well as in the deep tech sectors, which, and again, with the convergence of technology and the digitalization, we see a lot of opportunities across these sectors for a B2B perspective and B2C perspective. In my next slide, what I want to talk about is really about how Hong Kong actually has invested, the government has invested over $16 billion to develop and foster innovation and technology and to really develop Hong Kong. And this is only the beginning of the journey. In the Chief Executive's policy address last year in October, there's been an announcement of the development of the northern metropolis, which is bordering Hong Kong and Shenzhen, and also the development of the what we call the Shenzhen-Hong Kong Innovation and Technology Loop. It's called the Lok Ma Chau Loop, which is right on the border on the Hong Kong side, also developing into an innovation technology hub for that. If you were to look at it from the perspective, Hong Kong is a very small market of 7.5 million people. But next door to us, which I will talk about in a few minutes, is the Greater Bay Area. And as we know that Shenzhen is the most innovative city in the mainland of China. And again, when you look at Hong Kong's offering as a global financial center, as an international innovation technology hub, as well as a hub for transport, logistics, etc., when we couple that with what's going on across in the border of Shenzhen, we see that it's 1 + 1 = 3. It is not the development which we're seeing in terms of R&D, in terms of co-creation of solutions, in terms of ideation to commercialization, in terms of adoption of solutions for multinational corporations, as well as innovative companies, as well as the distribution of services in Hong Kong and via Hong Kong, is really second to none. This slide shows you about some of the areas which the government has kind of invested to develop the innovation technology, whether it is the Hong Kong Shenzhen Innovation Technology Park I talked about, or the investment in terms of research and R&D, development in terms of the collaboration between universities and the rest. And so the list goes on, and in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but we're more than happy to answer questions later on, and also follow-up questions that you may have on how companies can tap into these opportunities. In my next slide, I'd like to talk a little bit about the exciting journey which we are embarking on, and I'd like to invite you to consider that as you grow your business in Singapore and you're looking for markets to grow your business as a market for investment, to tap into opportunities from seed money to all the way to IPO, but also sort of how you could leverage on the growth market. So Hong Kong is part of this, what we call the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Greater Bay Area, in short, GBA. And you're going to hear a lot about that, because it is really, ladies and gentlemen, one of the most exciting phenomena happening globally as an economic impact for all of us. So if you think about it, Hong Kong with 7.5 million people currently, we're part of this greater, what we call GBA, which is 86 million people population. And this is 1 hour drive from Hong Kong, or train ride from Hong Kong. As you may know, that we have built and we're looking forward for the borders to be open as soon as possible, where you will be able to take the speed train from Hong Kong to Shenzhen in 14 minutes. Yes, 14 minutes to Shenzhen, and 45 minutes to Guangzhou. And basically on the other side, we've built a sea bridge, the longest sea bridge in the world, which basically connects Hong Kong, Macau, and Zhuhai. And instead of doing the 4-hour drive all over from Zhuhai, Zhongshan, Guangzhou, and down to Dongguan and Shenzhen, which normally will take you 4 hours, it now takes you 35 minutes across the bridge. So that infrastructure that we have built is second to none, which will connect Hong Kong to this 86 million population within an hour's drive in terms of speed train or transportation. And it is currently, ladies and gentlemen, a GDP equivalent to that of Australia or Spain, of about $1.6 trillion economy US. And by 2030, according to IMF and other think tanks, we're seeing that this is projected to grow to 4.6 trillion US dollars, which will be equivalent to what Germany is today as an economy. So this is something which is not that far away, it's about 10 years from now. So this opportunity is really second to none. It represents a tremendous opportunity for B2B and B2C. And in my next slide, I want to talk a little bit about how you could leverage on that. If you were to look at Hong Kong as a global financial center and as in terms of international innovation technology hub and a world-class manufacturing base. So if you were to think about, let's say the US as an example, you were to put New York, Silicon Valley, and also Texas all together within an hour's drive. So this is what you have here in terms of the Greater Bay Area. The 9 mainland cities with industrial clusters, from prototyping to manufacturing, a powerhouse, but also availability and abundance of modern factories and also skillful workers, and actually giving you the most cost-efficient supply chain and logistics and distribution using 5G and innovation, indigenous innovation. So Hong Kong with world-class universities, we have 5 universities in the top QS 100 class ranking according to Financial Times, with also as a global financial center and our solid common law system, which is similar to what Singapore has. We have a very low and simple tax regime, IP protection, a professional service, and a talent group of people here. And also we have a very attractive immigration scheme, which basically we enable people to hire the best talents from around the world to come in. As we all know, talent is the key area. We believe that part of that journey will enable you to, through that connectivity in terms of infrastructure, the facilitation measures that the government has put together, and the collaboration where we've built and foster with all the various 9 cities, especially Shenzhen and Guangzhou and all the various cities in the Greater Bay Area, and also using technology as an enabler, we believe that Hong Kong will offer you, ladies and gentlemen, something very, very unique, which is second to none. Now, in my next slide, I wanted to sort of take you through that in terms of the strategic importance on how Hong Kong is bridging the mainland and the global markets for innovation development. Hong Kong, as we all know, is a unique business environment with robust legal system, open free markets, simple tax regime, and a lot of basically the capital for fundraising. And also in terms of R&D, as well as business opportunities for ideation and commercialization. We believe that with the national R&D centers that is in Hong Kong, but also in the surrounding region of Hong Kong in the Greater Bay Area, and access to all the supply chain for logistics, especially supply chain for electronics and any type of parts, if you will. I believe that those of you who are doing business in the mainland, you know that actually you can have access to thousands of electronic equipped manufacturers, electronic manufacturers, parts. And I think that this pandemic actually has really put a lot of emphasis and shown that how you can have having access to different parts is extremely important, the whole supply chain. And when you look at it from a design and prototyping perspective, the Greater Bay Area and Hong Kong offers you this low and rapid prototyping for your products and as you bring it from ideation to commercialization, but also enable you to scale your manufacturing as well, and also basically use the ports. If you look at the numbers on the chart below, you will see that in terms of GBA, the world container throughput, it was close to 75 million TEUs. It's by far the largest in the world. And in regards to that, that basically enables you to not only do your trade financing, do your ideation to commercialization, but also bring and co-create solutions together with the innovative companies and the people who are needing those solutions. So with that, I'd like to just complete my presentation by giving you a on my last slide, the picture of how Hong Kong actually can help you tap into the Greater Bay Area and the rest of the mainland. Of course, from there as well, we see that a lot of countries from ASEAN working together, and how together with the new development in RCEP, this is very exciting for all of us, as we all are part of it. Singapore very much part of that, and we believe that there is a lot of synergies and opportunities for all of us to really work and flourish in the future. And we're waiting for the borders to be opened, and also we believe that, of course, right now we're in this Omicron crisis, but we all believe that it's going to be hopefully 2022 is going to be the beginning of the end of the pandemic, and we look forward for the borders to be reopened and also to welcome all of you to tap into these opportunities. So I look forward to your questions, and my team, Melvin and his team in Singapore, and myself will all stand ready to answer questions and help facilitate any type of support you would need to look into the market. Thank you very much. I look forward to your questions later.
Thank you so much, Charles, for your insightful sharing. We'll now like to move on to the Fireside Chat and Q&A. We'd like to invite all the speakers back onto the screen. This session will be moderated by Zihan, Director of Strategic Programs at SGTech. Zihan started his career with the National Population and Talent Division Prime Minister Office, where he was involved in creating policies and programs to facilitate the social integration of new immigrants before he moved to Spring Singapore to drive strategic partnerships and industry projects that help SMEs transform their businesses. Currently at SGTech, Zihan manages strategic programs including initiatives for talent development, internationalizations, and industry events to support the tech sector. If you have any questions, please submit them using the Q&A function. Zihan, over to you.
Thank you, Jess. Very good afternoon to everyone. And I just want to say a big thank you to the panelists, all of your wonderful presentations. It's really a privilege to host you today. And I also want to personally thank you, the audience, for joining us in this conversation. I look forward to addressing as many of your questions as we can. If we can't get to your questions, we are going to try our best to forward them over to our panelists so that we can get them addressed offline. With that, allow me to just set the context for this panel. Just 2 days ago, the World Economic Forum released its Global Risk Report for 2022. And suffice to say, it didn't paint a very rosy picture. In fact, it was quite sobering. In their surveys, 89% of the leaders perceived short-term outlook to be volatile, fractured, or increasingly catastrophic. Now, those are some very scary words, and unfortunately also backed by some scary concerns around things like social cohesion, climate change, cybersecurity risk, inflationary pressures. And specific to Singapore, the number one risk that we identified from the surveyor, the participant survey, was actually prolonged economic stagnation. Of course, outside all these, very scary concerns, there's also the dark cloud of COVID-19. Who can forget that as we enter 2022 with Omicron? But as our panelists, as you've already heard from our panelists, it's obviously not all doom and gloom. Good business opportunities all around the world will continue to be available in any circumstance. And that's why we are here today. And that's what we hope to talk about in this panel discussion. Where are these global opportunities for Singapore companies? What are the risks we need to manage? And where can we find the support from the tech ecosystem, right, in Singapore that our businesses need to go global? I'm sure our esteemed panel will have many, many valuable insights to offer. Before I turn to the panel, I just want to get a quick feel of the ground from all of you through a simple audience poll. And it's a very straightforward question. Essentially, Jess, could you just pull it up? Yes, I'm sure you see on your screen now. Very simple question. do you intend to expand your business beyond Singapore in 2022? I'm going to allow you some time to fill in your responses. But as you are filling in, I also want to, and we'll come back to this later, but I also want to turn right now to get to our panel, right? They are the reason why we're all here. And let me just open with the first question. And I think I'll go in reverse order of the presentation. So Charles, maybe I can look to you first. So the first question is this, and this is open to all the panelists. One of the key themes for Singapore's COVID strategy was emerging stronger together. We're entering into our third year of dealing with this COVID pandemic. I would like to hear the panelists' thoughts on how they think Singapore as a country has fared and whether our companies, our Singapore companies, are well placed to expand globally in 2022. Charles, over to you first.
Yeah, thank you very much for your question, John. I think that actually Singapore companies are extremely well placed. I think I think Singapore as a country has really demonstrated resilience, and also we've seen a lot of innovation coming out of Singapore. As I mentioned in my previous slides, that Singapore is the 5th largest investor in Hong Kong. And I believe that Singapore companies, because of their innovation, and also the support that you're getting from the Singapore government, Singapore companies are well placed to really go global and to leverage on that. Let me give you a couple of examples. So in the last couple of years, we've seen some really great companies from Singapore really making some really successful stride. I'm sure all of you know the Gleneagles that has the hospital that has set up in Hong Kong. They actually have also, in addition to the hospital and innovation that they've brought into Hong Kong, which we're very grateful for, that they are actually expanding and collaborating with the University of Hong Kong to develop a medical testing lab. So this is one example, and another one, which is Restalist, which is a medical testing lab as well, which is actually from Singapore, are doing extremely well. And we've seen also companies from, for example, food tech. You all know companies like the big name, which is basically the Sustaneer, which is the agri-tech startup, which has actually set up this grow food freshness in the city. And Singapore companies have also got into that and really made a very big stride in the Hong Kong scene, but also looking to grow beyond Hong Kong into the GBA. And also examples in fintech, for example, where we've seen global payment, Transwap, for example, as an example, Maple Tree Investment, and Hula and Caught as just to name a few Singapore companies. So these companies from the very diverse part of the Singapore sector are able to not only do extremely well in Hong Kong, but also leverage on what we're offering to really grow their business in the mainland, and also being able to get investments from investors here. So I think that the ecosystem that you're offering is really fostering a lot of great Singapore companies to really go and grow beyond that. And I think with the help of DISG, we're seeing a lot of the companies really tapping into the growth to expand beyond Singapore. And of course, we are ready, rolling a red carpet to welcome Singapore companies to look into the opportunities here.
Sorry, just muted. Thank you so much, Charles, and particularly helpful to hear specific examples. I think if our audience here really needs a lot more detail, right, do reach out. I'm sure Charles and his team will be able to share more. Ken, over to you on your perspective from the Western Union side of the house.
Yeah, I think 2021 was really challenging, but I think Singapore is really brilliant, did a very great job compared to the other countries, like specifically Japan, for example. Because I'm Japanese, I can compare instantly. Singapore government and the Singapore leaders, especially including their own companies, made a very great communication to all of us. And I think all of us are really, really, really resilient in terms of against the wind blowing against us, and we are really flexible, and I think that is one of the play a lot of parts that we are today. The impact was really, really minimal. I think economy-wise in 2022, it is going to be continued, probably including Omicrons, and the government and as well as the all the leaders in Singapore Island has been really give us good directions. And the important thing is the important things for the 2022 is how we can sell in terms of the economy as well as a business perspective. Again, just now I mentioned about the financial financial environment has been changing over the next 1 year or two. How you can be prepared to accommodate those environment changes to your business applies. Whether you want to wait for your capital investment into the maybe 2024, or you still want to invest into 2022. I think this is one of the critical decisions you have to really think about given the financial environment has been changing. Thanks.
Thank you, Ken. Chinta, finally over to you from the government perspective. Don't want to put you in the spot, but what's your report card on how we fared?
So I don't presume to speak for all of the Singapore government. I think I appreciate some of the kind words that Ken had mentioned earlier about our kind of reaction or policies with regard to the pandemic. I think it's been a challenging time for everybody, for people all around the world, for companies. I think to answer your question, it depends on the sector. So if you're F&B and travel, aviation, I think your sectors have been very hard hit, and the government has stepped in very strongly in Singapore to support many of these different sectors and enterprises that operate there. But again, in digital, it's odd to say this, but it's growing gangbusters. And I think the opportunity is both in Singapore and globally in the region, where it's emerging markets, places like Hong Kong and the Greater Bay Area or further abroad. I think there are a lot of opportunities for Singapore-based companies that have the gumption and ambition to go and compete with the best. In particular, I'm stamping for the Asia Pacific and Southeast Asian region because I think it's relatively less contested. I'm not saying it's uncontested, it's less contested, right? So if you look at the macroeconomic perspective, 2021 MTI, that's Ministry of Trade and Industry, economists estimate that Singapore's GDP will grow by about 7%, which I think is off a lower base, but I think it's quite healthy. For 2022, they are looking at 3 to 5%. So I think there are some green shoots there. With Omicron, not just on the horizon, but creeping into Singapore and other markets in the region, I think I won't say all bets are off, but we want to remain a little bit cautious, even while we're optimistic. So the way the Singapore government will continue to partner with our companies, and we have supported 15,000 companies throughout the Singaporean economy through Enterprise Singapore in terms of packages. We have trained 140 locals in new skills, whether around digital or other skills. They'll help prepare them for when the economic upswing comes. There's a lot of investment there. But I think what we want to do in DISG and through our parent agencies is to also say that we stand ready. I think the world will start returning to some form of travel. I think that will regularize or normalize. I think that means that there's an opportunity for us to support companies as they think about markets outside of Singapore.
Thanks, Chinta. A very encouraging note for Singapore companies, especially I'm assuming most of them here are tech companies themselves. So very encouraging word there. And at this stage, I just want to zoom in a little bit into the topics that each of our panelists represent. And the questions are coming pretty fast and furious. But Charles, I want to bring some of the audience questions to your attention and maybe combining a couple of them. In short, I think there were some questions around the impact of China's digital rules, right? The regulations around the recent, the Western media likes to call it a crackdown, and how they'll be impacted if they do set up in Hong Kong. Charles, do you want to comment on that?
Well, actually, the one country. Thank you for the question. And I think under the one country system, this is the beauty of it. I mean, Hong Kong is, as always, and it continues to offer this kind of conduit to tap into the opportunities in the mainland and also the risk factor. So companies coming into Hong Kong and via Hong Kong are able to really get a better sense of what's going on across the border. And of course, 99.99% of the companies that are in Hong Kong, they do business with the mainland. And actually, there's the different policies which are being placed together right now as we speak. But companies are leveraging on Hong Kong's position, a unique position in mainland China, in China, to really take advantage on how to navigate through the complexities. And so under the one country system, and also setting up a base in Hong Kong, companies are able to tap into the mainland and also take baby steps to look into how they could navigate through the complexities. Because a lot of the businesses, as I mentioned to you earlier in my presentation, the Greater Bay Area is a national policy of which we're part of. And this is very much part of the agenda of our country to really look at how the China, as it develops itself into and becomes the largest economy in the world, it is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. And I believe that Hong Kong is extremely well positioned for companies who are looking into that. Again, there's a lot of sandboxes and a lot of areas where we're developing together with our counterparts in Shenzhen, in the Greater Bay Area, on how to navigate through some of the complexities. And again, companies are using Hong Kong as not only to tap into opportunities across the border, but also as a risk management factor to looking how best to caliber their offerings together with what is needed, but also tap into the large opportunities that the Hong Kong and also the GBA and the country has to offer.
Thanks, Charles. And just to dig into that a little bit more as a call to action, you mentioned a lot of the navigating and the complexities, and I think that's on the top of mind of many people, right? Interested in entering Hong Kong and even the GBA. Is this something that Invest HK can help with? Work with companies to help them understand what needs to be done and what they can and cannot do.
Yes, we do. Actually, we do actually more than just part of our facilitation is to help companies grow and also get investments, get investors to invest in them, and we'll also connect them with larger corporations, the larger companies that are actually needing their services and potential. So we work with the regulators, we work with different stakeholders in government, and also we voice out some of the concerns that to the Hong Kong government, of course, and through the Hong Kong government to the various governments across the border as well. So there is a very strong network and workings. And again, it is a huge market. It's not a one market. Again, because of the fact that we have a lot of players here, the beauty is that we have a lot of players in Hong Kong that not only from around the world, like the Europe and US traditional markets, but also mainland China. So a lot of these companies, when they come here, if companies are looking to tap into that marketplace, there's no better way to kind of look into on how to collaborate with some of these folks which are leaders in their fields in the mainland and help navigate through that into the mainland. There are different ways of tapping into that, and our support is to really help connect innovative companies coming in from around the world and connect them with companies so that we can enable that to do business. But also with we have the Science Park, the Cyberport, and also with our research institutes and our academics that are looking at both sides of the border and how to look at to leveraging on opportunities on both sides. But again, doing it legally so that adopting the laws, but also looking at it. And that's where under the one country system, Hong Kong has the common law system. And again, in the mainland, it's a different legal system. And again, it's a very nice strategic bridge, which I would say companies are looking into. And we, our teams here, our sector specialist teams will help companies navigate through and tap into these opportunities.
Wonderful. That's great news for us. Thank you. Ken, just to take a little bit of the heat off Charles, shifting gears a little bit to talk about what's really hot on the US side, and that's the US Fed and their current trajectory to normalize monetary policy by increasing interest rates. I think you alluded very strongly to that being a likely scenario, right? But what does that mean to Singapore companies who are looking to maybe expand further or start expanding, right? What does it mean to the company on the ground? And regardless of the decision made, right, how can they mitigate some of the risk involved?
Okay, so there are two things we have to really look into it. Number one, the interest rate. Number two is the market risk. Let me dive into it. Interest rate risk. Interest rate risk is going to be affect the company's funding cost, or I can rephrase it, the credit cost. For example, if you want to borrow money from the bank, if the interest rate cost or policy rate rises, the funding cost or borrowing cost will increase. So a lot of SMEs, especially in Singapore, get trade financing with service from the banks. And when you do a trade financing from the banking, there are two things. For example, one of them is when you purchase goods from the company, or when you import goods from the overseas, you need to make a payment to the supplier. But because you want to manage a cash flow, bank will pay on behalf of you company SMEs. Now, if the interest rate cost rises, the bank will charge you the higher interest rate cost on top of the actual costing of, say, $1 million of import goods. So that is directly impact to your funding costs. Or alternatively, some of the companies do the opposite side. If you are an exporter, right? You export the goods to your overseas, and you are supposed to receive the cash from your clients probably over 2 or 3 months later. But because of the cash flow crunches or management, you would like to receive the cash as soon as possible. So bank will actually pay on behalf of your customer first, but they will use the interest rate calculation to discount it to the present value. And if you make a sales of, say, $1 million, if the interest rate cost rises, you can only receive 990,000, for example, bigger discount compared to the lower interest rate. So higher interest rate will usually do not work favorably to your company if you want to borrow money or get the funding from the bank. So that is one of the things you need to prepare. Second implication, market risk. What is market risk? When the interest rate goes higher, usually it will create a higher volatility in both equity market, bond market, as well as FX market. Now, let's focus on the FX market. When the interest rate goes higher, of course, in the textbook, say Fed hike interest rate for US dollars, usually it is favored to the US dollars. It means US dollars goes up. Yeah, but the financial market is not as easy as like this. It is much more complexity because it is always work against our expectation. Say, if maybe I can share with you my slides. Can I share my screen?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yep, sure. Right. So probably I will dive into the previous FOMC meeting. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yeah. Fed members at the last meeting in December, every quarter they come out with a projection of the economy and the inflation and employment rate. Most of them, they are very optimistic. Inflation is actually revised up, as well as the economy growth as well, and the lower cut the unemployment rate from 3.8% to 3.5%. But most important thing was the Fed also come out with a projection of what is the interest rate is like in 2022. So, for example, this is Q3 FOMC meeting. At that time, most of the Fed members are not expecting the rate hike so much, but probably if you look at the Q4 at the last meeting, the median of the Fed members expect rate hike will be happen for 3 times. So key important thing is this expectation is priced in or not. And how we usually check is that we look at the future. probability future distribution. There is a market called Fed Fund Rate Futures, and based on this, right? I just pulled out the data from today. The market expectation for the rate hike for 3 times is already kind of priced in, because 80.6% probability chance is 3 times rate hike or more. But key highlight here is in the red color box, more than 52.3% thinks, sorry, 52.3% chance of the probability thinks the rate hike will happen 4 times or more. So these are the things it's not priced in. So what happens is if the Fed continue to hike interest rate and give us kind of signal that they are going to take an aggressive rate hike in 2022, more than the market expectation, that is going to create a lot more volatility, as well as the probably in this scenario, the US dollars may goes up. Companies really need to prepare for those kind of scenario. Either way, goes up or go down. As I mentioned at the slide, if you didn't hedge or if you didn't manage FX risk, it's always the kind of the highest risk, highest return game. So I encourage all of the customer to think about how you can manage or how to reduce or mitigate the FX risk of this perspective. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. A very, very comprehensive answer there. Thank you very much. Helpful for many like myself who may not be so familiar with what the interest rate risk really mean. Chinta, over to you. And my question for you is along the lines of returning to a normalcy when it comes to doing overseas mission and going global, right? You know, in expanding to Asia, I think there's a lot of pent-up demand for physical missions. We've been trying to do our best, right? And you know, we've been working with DISG for a long time to do e-missions, and we've managed to get quite a bit of success. But we also hear from the ground there's still a keen interest whenever we expand to most of Asia, I would say, right, for physical interaction. What is your take on how 2022 is looking in terms of being able to go out and hunt again?
Thanks, Jahan. Again, I'll make the crystal ball caveat. I don't, nobody really knows how it's going to play out in 2022. We want to hope for the best. And what we are seeing right now is it seems that borders are starting to cautiously reopen, Omicron notwithstanding. Over the past, for those of you who are on the line and maybe not so familiar with some of the atypical engagement over the past 1 to 2 years, the government in Singapore has encouraged more virtual missions, going with partners, going through their distributor or channel networks, because there was no kind of like option for physical missions that naturally had to go. With the reopening of some of the borders, I think there's something we want to get started again. The support that the Singapore government has always given will start to kick back in for eligible companies to support them to be more market ready. In fact, the scheme there is a market readiness assistance scheme to help them understand the market, enter the market, or establish a more significant presence. So that will come back into play, assuming, of course, the borders reopen to the key target markets. But in the meantime, the kind of like unconventional methods still are still available. And in particular, I want to call out a few key things. The Singapore government has 36 overseas centers in the region, I think close to 20, which facilitate or connect, kind of like, to borrow Charles's phrase, connect Singapore-based companies opportunities in regional markets, right? So actually, in a certain sense, maybe we can stand down some of our centers in the Hong Kong region, since Charles and his team are doing such a great job there. And I think these guys, they facilitate the market entry and connect them to partners on the ground. Two, we have the Global Innovation Alliance, which is established a few key nodes around the region like Jakarta, and we're establishing more. The idea here is how do we allow innovation to flow between Singapore and other innovation nodes, right? And that's something that Singapore-based companies can also tap upon. We're starting to experiment with things like Open Innovation Challenge, which is like, are there regional problem statements that Singapore companies can access or participate or club together to address as a syndicate rather than singly? because that makes things a little bit more interesting. So all these things I think will remain important, supplemented by some of the actual physical travel that will happen in the coming months, fingers crossed. I also wanted to kind of like make a point around the idea of a tech ecosystem. And I think tech ecosystems do not exist singly in isolation. So I'm very excited about the idea of Singapore being connected to the Hong Kong Greater Bay Area, being connected to the Silicon Valley, being connected to Jakarta. The idea is no longer a zero-sum game where we share the pie. It's about how we can work together to expand the pie, because it's a win-win-win. So I just want to leave that thought with our participants today as well. It's no longer the good or bad old days of competition for investments. I think in an industry like digital, it is about complementarity. It is about growing the pie together. It's about going together. Thanks.
Thank you, Chinta. That's a wonderful note to end on, a win-win-win. And it's a question we often find ourselves asking also whenever we try to facilitate this matching, right? What can we value add to you as well, and go together, right? Thank you for that. Let me just address some very simple, straightforward questions. Eddie, yes, I see you. We will be able to provide the context for our panelists to all the attendees here. So actually, we're going to encourage you to continue to reach out to any of the three of them as well as myself, right? So if you do have more questions that we can't answer today, right, do feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be sharing those contexts. Jess, if you just pull up the quick poll, right, that we shared earlier. Okay. So let's see. Already have an overseas presence. Plan to further expand 43%. That's actually a wonderful number. So as far as I can see, a good 73% intend to go forward, right, and expand globally in 2022. And this is in spite of all the negativity we are seeing in the news, right? So I'm glad that the community is a little bit more positive than what we are seeing above the line, right? So I just wanted to open this up to the panelists, right? To really hear your thoughts and comments. Is this kind of optimism what you are seeing from the other stakeholders that you've been working with as well? Is this optimism warranted, right? Charles, maybe back to you first.
Yes, thank you very much. Before I answer the question, I just want to echo Chinta's comments about it's not a zero-sum game. I think it's very exciting to see the collaboration, and it's like it's 1 + 1 = 3 again. With the collaboration, I think Singapore and Hong Kong has a lot to offer both. And we encourage companies from Hong Kong to grow in Singapore and vice versa. So we cherish that value very much, that partnership. So to answer the questions, we are very excited. The reason why I'm so excited is because we have a very strong pipeline. The sectors that I oversee, the 9 sectors that I oversee, that we have accumulated a very strong pipeline. We still see a very, very exciting development, but people are just waiting for the borders to open. Of course, there's a lot of uncertainty right now because the vaccination rate is not as high as we would love it to be. But I believe that eventually it will. Yes, we are facing a major crisis, but I think overall there is a lot of optimistic feeling about the fact that the business opportunities are there. Investors are waiting to tap into the best investments that they could offer. We see a lot of investors from the mainland, family offices, etc., that are actually sitting in Hong Kong and waiting to tap into the investment opportunities. They want to invest into the most innovative companies that they want to expand. So it's not just about investing only in Hong Kong, but in the region and beyond. So investors are looking at it. Businesses have been suffering. And a lot of businesses, those who are actually surviving, are looking for opportunities. They are really, really ready to do it. And that's one of the things that we've been doing is to again, like Chinta was talking about, is to do programs virtually. So my colleagues in Singapore and around the world were working a lot. We're busier than ever before because there's a lot of virtual meetings that were happening. So we're trying to build that readiness so that everybody has the information at the fingertips and ready to push the button as soon as the borders are open, as soon as it's safe to travel. I think that people are ready to go. And so we're excited to see this really, not only the trend, but also the pipeline a very strong pipeline from multinational corporations to SMEs and innovative companies, scale-up startups that are really ready to do it. And also investors are ready to invest in them. So we're very excited about that.
Wonderful. Ken, over to you. You spoke a lot more about the risk. Hand it over to Chinta to maybe give the more balance on both sides.
Yeah, I think two perspectives. I think overall the poll shows a little bit more inclined to the positive side and optimism side. I think all of us are getting used to the COVID-19 battle is getting close to the kind of normalization and so on and so forth. Some of the voices I heard from the clients is like very interesting to note that last year the business performance was not too bad. As Chinta mentioned, that some of the industry really hit hard, but some of the industry actually benefited. Overall, what I hear is the voices, maybe negative voices are overwhelming our businesses and I can't foresee, I can't say, I don't know 2021. But when you look at the P&L and the financial statements, I think turn out to be positive. The key thing is that in 2022, I think this uncertainty is going to be continued, right? But we have to know how to sell the cloudy market. Yeah, it is going to be still continue to be rain, storm, but I think all of us are becoming more resilient, and we can be more proactive in terms of how to manage the risk in terms of financial, business, and in terms of the counterparty as well. So I think the poll shows a positive, which is good things, but I think the positive shows that clients are learning through the course of the past 2 years how to manage the FX risk or how to manage the overall business risk as well. So I think it is good to see that, but I think let's continue that momentum in 2022.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Ken. What a wonderful thing for your P&L statements to be a lot more optimistic than the news headlines. Yeah. Chinta, over to you. Is this aligned with what you're seeing with the companies that you manage and your stakeholders?
Thanks, Zhihan. And I just wanted to quickly echo some of the points made by Charles and Ken. I think the idea here is there's uncertainty. Uncertainty is generally not good for business, but this is not even a silver lining. There's a lot of opportunity out there. So then it is about making sure that we are ready. I think a lot of enterprises have been battle hardened by the past 2 years. They have learned to do business remotely, digitally, through partners, through channels. A lot of it was uncomfortable at first, but over time they've gotten used to it. So the way I think about it, if there's also physical travel, that's the cherry on top of the sundae, right? But the sundae is there for the eating already. I don't want to oversimplify this. I know things are still difficult and uncertain out there, but the idea here is to be as ready as the enterprise or the company can be and start to be very kind of like proactive and forward-leaning in addressing some of these opportunities. Coming back to the poll, I thought what really was most interesting, and I'm very glad to see it, is that 0% of our respondents thought that they should be scaling back their overseas enterprise. So it's kind of like once you go, there's no turning back because the opportunity is out there. No one here is saying that it's easy, but what we are saying is I think there's tremendous potential for growth. And I think that is quite consistent with a lot of conversations my team and I have been having with our partners as well as our customers. And I think the other kind of like point I'll leave here is around this idea of partnership. Not just partnering with DISG or Invest HK, but a lot of the trade associations, organizations like SGTech, the trade associations, larger kind of like digital companies, people who offer a retail solution, a supply chain solution. I think these have come to the fore as aggregators of demand or intermediaries that can connect to opportunities overseas, right? So as the saying goes, if you want to go far, you have to go together. And I think going together with government and trusted private sector partners is the way to go during this time.
Thank you, Chinta. And shameless plug for SGTech. Thank you very much. Do reach out to us. We are the trade association. We hope to help you, right? And obviously, all our partners here are, working very closely with us. So win-win-win all around. And Chinta, I especially like the term you use, battle hardened after 2 years, right? The battle is still fierce, but yes,
Yep.
harder and then ready to go. Yeah, thank you. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, so I just want to open this up to a last word of encouragement, maybe in a minute or so, right? From our three panelists here, and with that, we'll wrap it up. For those of us who have submitted questions, do reach out to us either through the survey later, right? Or just reach out to Jess, myself, whoever in SGTech you can get your hands on, right? And we will forward your questions accordingly. So one last word in a minute or so, a word of encouragement, especially the other figure that I found was 30% actually have not expanded, right? And overseas and are looking to in 2022, right? That's a very exciting figure in itself, right? What is your word of encouragement for all of these folk? Ken, why don't we start with you?
What's the question?
One last word of encouragement for all those people who are expanding overseas in 2022.
Yeah, don't be afraid of the risk. Actually, risk can be managed, and the risk is always associated with some reward, right? So risk is to manage something, and the risk is can be a friend. Volatility sometimes, people are so scared, right? Volatility can be your friend, right? So don't be afraid of anything, and especially Singapore companies are really fortunate to have such a good association, good support from the government, and you get all of the support, and your business is really going to be fantastic in 2022 and then after. Take this opportunity to keep moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Charles?
Great. I'm just going to answer my question because there were two questions that in terms of IP protection and also marketplace expansion. So my final sort of message to all of you is that please come and explore. We stand ready to support you, and I think the opportunities are enormous, and for you to tap into. Whether you're looking for market opportunities and IP protection, we have different teams at Invest Hong Kong that can help you. We have specialist teams and subsector specialists that can help you in your journey. Whether it is IP protection that Benjamin asked, or Roy, or we had a question about how to use Hong Kong to go global or overseas markets. We have a lot of these mainland companies that are here that they want to tap into the global markets. And unlike what we see in the media, sometimes the headlines, it's contrary to that. We see opportunities really. And so our teams are ready to support you in your journey. So please come and talk to us. We are here to support you and also partner with our friends in Singapore.
Thank you.
Come and talk to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Chinta, the last word. I feel like you've been all encouragement today, but maybe in the middle or so, to add to that. Thank you.
Thanks, Johan. I'll end off. There are some questions on I think Sue was asking about a resource. I think if you reach out to me, Sue, I'll send you the link. It's actually available publicly. I also see a question around ASEAN community positioning ourselves strategically. I think we have no time to go into a grand treatment of the geopolitics of the question, which is actually quite deep. But suffice to say, the short version is I think ASEAN is not here to take sides. I think once we take sides, we'll be very constrained in our kind of like maneuverability. So the idea here is how can we be interoperable between the bigger markets in Europe, in North Asia, as well as in Americas. Finally, my last word. My last word is kind of like an expression. I think I'm very motivated or inspired by the phrase, it takes a village, right? So it takes a village to raise a child, and I think it takes a village to build a great tech ecosystem, right? Both in Singapore and in the region. I think we look forward to working with you guys. I am very excited to see if you guys have any questions or comments for us, because we want to do better. But the idea here is it takes a village. We can't do this alone. It's not a government pasar. It's not like only on SGTech. I think we have to work together to address some of the issues around tech talent, around supply chain, around innovation, so and around, of course, globalization and internationalization. So it's been great. Thank you very much. And I'm wishing everybody a great 2022 ahead. Thanks.
Wonderful, awesome. On that very positive note from all the panelists, I don't want to add to that, right? You've heard from them. Thank you very much. A big thank you to each and every one of them, right? Charles, Ken, and Chinta for spending your time with us. Over to you, Jess.
Yeah. Once again, thank you to all our speakers for the very engaging and encouraging discussion, right? And we'd like to thank again our partners, Digital Industry Singapore, Invest Hong Kong, and Western Union Business Solution for supporting this webinar. We hope the session has been useful and we have gained valuable takeaways. For those questions, right, that's not answered, we will take it offline and reply with you with a response after the event. Before we end, right, we just want to take a short minute to do a quick poll to see how we can actually create relevant content, right, and improve for our future sessions, right? So I have launched the poll right now. You'll be able to see on your screen. So please help us to answer then and see whether you are also interested for follow up on some of the initiatives, right? While you answer the poll, right, I will also be sharing some of the upcoming activities that we have, right? So SGTech, we are also planning for the upcoming e-business mission. So if your company have an innovative tech solution targeting Australia, you can join us for this upcoming e-business mission, and we'll get and you will be able to get connected to the regulators as well as potential partners such as distributors, resellers, and clients. So Australia is Singapore's longest standing bilateral partner with an open economy, robust regulatory frameworks, and transparent processes position. The country is also often viewed as a safe and attractive place for business investment and international trade. So companies who participating in this e-business mission will be able to get a minimum 5 qualified and customized business leads, informative webinars on Australian market, and as well as one-to-one meetings with C-suite decision makers of leading companies in Australia. So eligible Singapore companies will also get up to 70% support on the ESG lead grant on the e-mission fees. Right, so you can scan the QR code on top of this screen to register your interest. All right. Lastly, we would like to actually invite participants to also follow SGTech social accounts, so you can keep up to date with our upcoming activities, advocacy, position articles, industry research reports, and more. If you have also further queries, you may actually contact SGTech Go Global team about this email that you've seen on the screen, right? So thank you so much everyone for attending today. We hope to see you soon in our next session, right? Take care, stay safe. See you, thank you.